And
You're to witness
recording is
something
on.
monumental.
And it's fucking beautiful.
Nice.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening from the woods of East Texas for the Honey Badger. The one, the only real shit talk about violence, the gospel of violence. Today I'm glad and proud to have our first guest. And the first guest being the one, the only, Mr. Craig Douglas. We just finished a multi-day class with Craig, and so Craig, first of all, thanks for being here. I really appreciate not only you presenting what you presented during the past 2 days that I had a pleasure to watch and record and listen to, but you being here.
Absolutely.
A lot of instructors, in our industries, folks avoid being questioning.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this outside of the comfort zone thing where dudes like, well, I don't know what he's gonna ask, and in what light I'm gonna be presented to the audience.
Right.
In the past 2 days from watching you, I saw something, authenticity and passion about your trade. So we decided not to prepare any questions, and
Nope.
we're just gonna go pretty much hip hop, whatever develops.
Right, absolutely.
So
It's a dope deal.
it's a dope deal.
It's a dope deal. This
Whatever
podcast,
happens.
This podcast is a dope deal. And, that's kind of what I do. So,
As your first P, you put pressure.
correct.
What's the reason for pressure being the first?
The biggest failing of my traditional, long since I was in single digits, orthodox martial arts education, when I tried to apply that in real world street environments in a high risk profession, was the distinct lack of pressure that I had experienced in training that I was experiencing in the real world. It didn't feel the same way. There wasn't the same amount of contact. There wasn't the same amount of forward drive. And it was very, very, very different. And ubiquitously thinking of all those as just pressure, that's one of the first things I want to inculcate in a student is a realistic understanding of what pressure really is and what pressure really feels like.
So pressure in your methodology is not used as some kind of a check mark of, how would I say it in our industry, I'm a hardcore fucking dude.
Not at all. Not at all. Pressure actually is required. There's an old adage, pressure makes diamonds.
Yeah.
And I think that's very, very much true. The earlier we get guys experiencing, feeling, and just accustomed to pressure, that's when we start really developing technique. And pressure will yield the truth, and it will yield technique. And and I know you've experienced this in so many traditional martial arts. It's backward, eerily similar martial arts journey.
Yeah.
Eerily similar. Yeah.
It is eerily similar, and I told you yesterday that you're not just you're simply not aware of it, that you are part Russian genetically, and you kind of laughed with this awkward kind of like, what the fuck are you talking about, right? But here's the reason why I said that, folks, because the second P in Craig's presentation was posture, right?
Yes.
And to me, it struck right away because in the Russian combatives approach, we have some people refer to as the 4 pillars, and first being breathing, second being movement, third being what some people refer to form or posture, and the fourth being relaxation or lack of excess tension.
Right.
Right. This is principle, and what principle is it's non-interpretable.
Right.
Right. So when you started dropping these principle truly fundamental principles as this is where shit grows from. This is where I go like, he must be Russian. Because only Russians know that, right?
Right. Right, absolutely. Well, I've always appreciated the connection that Russian martial arts has with physical culture. And I think in America there's so many people that do martial arts that are not connected to physicality, and they pay lip service to spirituality, right? But it's really not, you know when it's not authentic. And one thing I've always appreciated about Russian culture is the deep understanding and homage and appreciation and honoring of physical culture and spirituality.
What's the difference between the theory and the practice, right? In theory,
Right.
none.
Exactly. Exactly.
But when you log horns, all that shit evaporates. The theories evaporate.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what's cool to me to see is the crossover, and we've both been on such a varied martial arts journey. You know, we've both chased Yoda
Yes,
at
we do.
times. You know, so if the audience doesn't know, chasing Yoda is my story for most everyone's martial arts journey. And essentially, chasing Yoda is where you enter into the martial arts believing there's a wizened guy somewhere that lives in an austere place, like a mountain or a desert or, you know, a jungle on Dagobah, like Yoda, right? And we all bought into the bill of goods that if we kissed this guy's ass long enough and well enough that we truly would be able to raise the X-Wing fighter out of the swamp with our minds. And, you know, Yoda's a Muppet. Yoda doesn't exist. And I think we've all on our journeys over the years believed in and chased Yoda, this wizened sage, this archetype.
When did the moment of the heartbreak comes when you realize that Yoda is a Muppet? What does it take for that heartbreak to become reality that liberates you from that shit?
It's interesting too because I think you know I did Aikido and Aikijitsu for many years, and I did that as a teenager. And I got into Kali and Salat, and my Aikido people didn't like that, and it was too rough, and there was too much contact. I wasn't doing the way, and then I got into Shuto and Muay Thai more.
So you went more and more
and
savage.
boxing. I did, yeah, and I started, you know, becoming kind of an outcast, you know. But my law enforcement journey inevitably took me to those things that had a higher percentage of working in real fights, and these
Yeah.
guys weren't fighting. You know, they were running around in skirts. Yeah, how do you have any commonality with, you know, a guy who says, "Oh, I'm a martial artist too, Sonny, just like you." You know,
Just don't touch me.
yeah, just don't touch me. No contact.
The goal of mine in this podcast is really dig a deep hole into the why of the what. So I filmed. And, you know, having been in the film industry for a little bit, it's interesting the camera view, what it provides you with.
Right.
Because I saw stuff that it was unique, you know. So I want to ask you now, just to kind of break that thought, but what really struck me was that this is the first time outside of my own world, and I thought I was alone in it, but apparently I'm not. There are some other Russians doing good shit.
Russian, Irish, Mexican.
Okay.
That's
All
a bad bloodline.
That is just, yeah. You call it reductionism,
Yeah.
right? And it struck me because I've seen dudes, again, the check mark, the empty phrase, the stale cliche of keep it simple, stupid, you know, and all these other things. And
Yeah.
But how would you describe the difference between reductionism versus watering down or dumbing down?
Great question, man. So reductionism and congruency, and that came from my journey as a martial artist transitioning into finite time format coursework. Now, I was a police academy instructor for 20 years, and that gave me a heads up on the difference between a fixed site with a recurring, relatively homogeneous group, and then a group of armed professionals that may even be disinterested for a week,
Yeah.
or 3 days or 4 days. Very, very, very different person to teach to. But if the curriculum is constructed well and it's well thought out, there's probably an answer there with slight modification. And that's what I mean about, that's the difference, I think, between dumbing down, okay, and reducing. Because I think when we I think dumbing down is probably more synonymous with diluting, okay, versus concentrating.
Purifying.
Purifying, yeah, or concentrating. So I think that would be, to me, that would be the main difference between dumbing something down and reductionism. I think reductionism sharpens.
Would you
and
say that
brings into focus.
reductionism is more reliant on the factor of robustness versus simplicity?
Yes.
Okay, so you're looking basically for solutions that are not simple for the sake of, see, I use the KISS principle.
Yep.
It's simple, but it's fucking dumb.
It's not simple for simple's sake, right? Just like we're not congruent for congruency's sake. Congruency, as a quality of a well-developed curriculum, I think is a good thing. But we're not just congruent for the sake of congruency, right?
Yeah.
Because we know that it's probably better for guys to do more with less. It's probably better for them to have less options that they can do and accomplish more with, and one of the things I was talking about as far as the way I've constructed the wrestling, the Shivaworks wrestling curriculum, and I certainly didn't invent wrestling, but I've designed that to be taught in 4 hours to people who have never wrestled.
Yeah.
Operating system: pressure, posture, position. 4 basic attachments: the underhook, the overhook, the bicep tie, the wrist tie. Optimal combination of the underhook and the arm tie, because it provides us the most and best options for wrestling in a weapons-based environment, for resolution points. To a primary strategy of getting behind him. 2 ways to do that: binary by nature, duck under arm drag. If you can't do that, secondary strategy of locking his limbs down. 2 ways to do that. Which one you choose depends on who holds the more dominant position. And that's it. It's never been about, out wrestling someone. It's been about giving someone enough wrestling to get a weapon out and finish with the weapon. It's never been about beating someone at their own game. So that was a huge compliment to me. And when I look at, can I take an average person in a short, finite period of time and give them the ability to hang on long enough with a superior human in attributes and skill to produce a weapon to escape? That's really the best I can do in short course format, and as importantly, inspire them because of the experience to look at maybe a combat sports or martial arts lifestyle. They've been students of self-defense. They've been carrying guns. They've been shooting enthusiasts, and, to quote Cooper, just because you have a guitar doesn't make you a musician.
You're certainly not Jimmy Page.
Exactly. I think kind of like this podcast, they just have not, they have not experienced the gospel of violence. They're still lukewarm Christians that haven't heard the word, and when they hear it finally, it keeps me on the straight and narrow of I can't be full of shit. I can't be full of myself. And if I don't know, I need to tell them, dude, I don't know. And because they trust me. So
you don't play a role of God, all-knowing God.
I can't lead them astray. I absolutely not. Don't deify me. Don't put me on a fucking pedestal. You know, I'm a struggling, I'm an imperfect human just like you, struggling for grace. That's it. And this is a way, okay, that you might be able to do a little self-examination, man. And it's interesting, man, because that's what all martial arts, that traditionally it's what it's supposed to be about. But you don't get that without the pressure.
No, it's a lip service anymore.
You don't get that without the pressure. If you guys aren't fucking hitting each other, and if you're not faced with your own mortality, at least you're feeling it, right? Whether it's real or not, simulation. When those guys tear those fucking helmets off and they're gasping on the ground and they're holding a dead T-gun, you know, their mind doesn't know, you know, logically or their mind doesn't know emotionally that that's not real.
You said I never examined my victories, but every fight I fucking lost. You know, and I tell my students, I'm like, it was sleepless nights. I lay there with my eyes open, still hurting, still swollen, still missing a tooth or two, or, you know, or something like that. And it was this endless mind trip of how the fuck did I make this mistake? What happened, right? Victory, you go, you have a beer, you high five, you tell the war story, how your jumping spinning kick practically beheaded your opponent, right? And it's forgotten. There's no lesson from
Don't
there.
remember any of that.
How do you integrate that into your methodology to help students to see mistakes as teachers, not as failures?
You know, I think a big part of that also specifically is everybody watches and everybody performs in front of everybody else.
Combat sport, right?
And absolutely. And my job is at some point the wheels are going to come off. So if I have an MMA stud, Devin, good example.
Yeah.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt, fucking big.
Legit.
Hard guy to challenge, okay? Devin may dominate in a one-on-one. Probably not going to dominate in a two-on, right? Because everybody looks the same in a dog pile with two dudes. Or maybe Devin's challenge is not his physicality. He just didn't make good decisions. And Devin,
we saw a couple times.
And Devin shoots a guy that he shouldn't shoot in front of everybody, and now he's foundering. So that's what I look for, is somehow, some way, in a controlled descent. My job is to make the wheels come off for everybody and create a room, an empty room in his mind, where he can sit by himself and contemplate that moment.
Crack the shell, but don't shatter it, right?
Absolutely. I've figured out everything, and I still am, and it's like I said today, I'm never satisfied with my instructorship. I'm never satisfied with what I've done. I am fortunate that I'm able to do what I love to do and make a living at it, you know, and like I told you, I say the same words every single time, and I say them like I mean them.
You mentioned getting away from the systems. Why? What is the oppression of the system, the way you see it?
Wow, you know, I think being beholden to a system versus, because a system exists ultimately a system exists to perpetuate itself, right? You could make the same argument about me. I mean, I make a living doing this, you know, and is there a conflict in my search for truth between my stability, my financial stability, and my art and the truth of my art and what I do, you know? I always suffer from imposter syndrome. I really do. I always wonder, do I really know what the fuck I'm talking about? You know, and I always question and ask myself that, I think that is healthy, and I think it keeps me on due diligence. It keeps me curious, and it keeps me unsatisfied about what I'm doing, and it forces me to improve. And it's just through the trust and the patronage of the people who support me that I'm able to come back and continue. And I hope I never have to say, and I haven't had any, unfortunately, I have never had someone come back to me and say, and this is probably one of my greatest fears, you know what, I believed in you and you're full of shit and I got fucking hurt. Always. Absolutely. Believe in it. True believers.
It fucking matters.
Yeah, it does matter. It actually does matter. Absolutely. You know, you're the Apostle Saulius.
The lightning is about to come from upstairs and hit us for saying.
Gotta get knocked
This
off
is
your
some
horse.
blasphemous shit right here, man.
It is. This is the gospel of violence.
That's right.
There's got to be some biblical reference.
Yeah.
You're going to read from the book of Philippians here in just a moment.
Padre Craig and Padre Sonny. But listen, man, I could go on with this shit for hours and keep my son up here sitting with a little camera over there and go like, screw the school for the next 2 days.
And I'm really not a priest, so you don't have anything to be scared of. Okay, I'm just letting you know there. So.
By the way, to my audience, my 11-year-old son Nicholas, he's my technical producer of my show, so I'm using child labor, and if you're offended, deal with it. Get a thicker skin.
And by the way, Nicholas, you're filming, right? You can say something.
Sure.
Okay, you see that? Oh, you totally looked.
I've been around, and I've seen and I've done, and what I saw this weekend with Craig's ECQC course is if you haven't taken it, and if you're on the couch going, I got to get it in shape and then I'll take it, shut the fuck up and take it. Don't wait. Here's the place, and now is the time. You will be sore, you won't be sorry. What I call the conflict resolution. What is your term that you use?
Managing unknown contacts. Muck.
Right?
Because we got to make an acronym out of everything.
Right. Well, this is a very American thing to do.
It's a very American thing to do.
You know, but at least it's not like Chinese, you know, the dragon sweeps its tail.
That's true, right? I was going to say, you know.
And there was bleeding. There were sprains and pain and people getting shot in the taint with the marking munitions, right? And so
that happened.
On muck, I'm just going to tell you this, dudes and dudettes. You may be spending a shit ton of time and money and getting great satisfaction on pressing those triggers straight back and hearing the satisfactory trigger reset click and thinking that you are preparing for violence. Violence is interaction. And the old adage of martial arts is the true mastery is when you no longer have to fight.
Absolutely.
Right? And so to me it was in an ironic way very satisfactory to see the dude that others are going like, yeah man, Craig is just as crazy and violent and drags knuckles and people go limping out of his classes and shit like that. And then you're talking about social awkwardness and social literacy.
Yep.
And the use of words, intonation, and body language. Folks, ECQC is a must course, not just because you will learn the 3Ps and operating system and the 4 baseline things with the... Anyway, to me was more fundamental the engagement of the brain in human interaction to where we try not to get into that shit sandwich.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate you being here, brother. I really
Dude,
do.
like I told you, it's long overdue, and this was an awesome weekend, and I appreciate, you making me successful. So thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, one more time, Craig Douglas. God willing, we will have him again on this podcast, and we'll dig deeper and we'll talk more painful and uncomfortable things. But for now, for your first dose of the Brain Digger series of Podcast of Violence, the Gospel of Violence, we thank our first guest, Craig Douglas. We will have more with many people that I feel have brains that are worth digging into. But remember this, theory will not pull you out of the hole. You're going to have to put your knuckles into the dirt. You're going to have to get your shoes dirty, and you're going to have to get your feels hurt. Make that commitment, because time is running short for all of us individually. This is not apocalyptic talk. This is just a matter of life. We get older, we get less capable. Thankfully, hopefully, for most of us, we become wiser. Make the wise choices, invest in training. Sonny Puzikas here from the woods of East Texas with the Gospel of Violence podcast. Till we see you next time. God bless.